Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jeff Ruiz here. Chronicles of Michael Talbot, the podcast. 6 o'clock, and it's Wednesday. Must be time to get some Talbot on, but I can't do it by myself. Let's bring in my co-host Amber Smith
What's going on, everybody?
and Mr. Jason Leelighter.
Good morning, good evening, I guess. I don't know. It's been a long day already.
What part of the world are you in, dude? It's the
I am at
tinfoil.
home.
It's the receptors. So Chris is going to
Yeah.
be joining us a little bit later.
Cool
What's
deal.
up?
Oh, I said I'm finally at home for once. It's 3 weeks on the road, and so
So, if you could not tell, we have not lost our minds. We are doing our tinfoil hat episode, yeah, just a little bit, where we are going to theorize, we are going to conspirize, we are going to otherizes, and just where do we think this is all going? We just wrapped up the ZF-22 last week, and if you got to the whole end of it, you listen to the epilogue where there's Trip, and Trip is in a lab back in the 50s or 60s, and he's talking about feeding reporters to the Genogerians in Area 51 and all kinds of crap. And we're like, what is going on? Also, Devil's Desk, where Trip is a multi-billionaire. The vortex where the Yetis come from. Who knows what can be down there? What's going on, Ioka? There's a lot happening. And if you had followed us over the past it's been over a year now. We've done Zombie Fallout, Indian Hill, Callous Rose, Spirit Clearing, Tim, Lichen Fallout. Am I forgetting anything?
Uh, we did Devil's Death, didn't we?
Devil's Death, yeah, it does. I just mentioned. Next week, we're going to start on Shrouded World, where everything just kind of gets thrown, in together. But wanted to start this week and talk about after the end of Zombie Fallout 22 and what we have heard and what we have listened to and kind of what we've heard from Mark when he's been on the show, where we think this is all going to go. Me personally, I think we're going to get a multiverse type of thing. He's already starting it with his fantasy novel that he's got coming out a month or two or something like that, where it's the same characters, but in a different universe. They're in the past. It's a fantasy novel with dragons and probably Yetis and unicorns and all kinds of crazy crap. And Trip is a wizard. It's kind of going to be nuts. This is definitely, I think, going to be a fan service book. I know absolutely nothing about it at all, besides Mark telling us that Drababan is in it, or Drababan, as Mark puts it, is in it, and everybody thinks he's a baby dragon. But what is he doing in the past, in a medieval fantasy realm? What the heck? It's kind of driving me nuts as to what is going to happen, Amber, what do you think about all of it? Where do you think? Anybody in the chat, if you're in there with us, say hi and share your views, because this is a big speculation. That's the other Asian word I was looking for, speculation word that we think of where we all think it's going to happen. So if you're in the chat watching or listening, share your views and we'll put them up on the screen and we'll read them out loud, because we can't carry this thing by ourselves, people. This is much bigger than just the three of us. So Amber, the floor is yours.
So I think one of my problems is going to be with this episode is that one of my favorite series is the Distance series. And
Distance, we did that one
Distance, too. Yeah, I literally just finished reading it, listening to it today. One of my issues when you ask like where it could possibly go is in the Distance series, Mike literally jumps from through time and space to assist Winter and Cedar so that they can continue on with their journey and, spoiler alert, take care of the Strivers or the others once and for all. And in my mind, I'm like, Mad Jack or Peter Pender in almost every book has been a phenomenal force in continuing their technology when they're in the middle of like an apocalypse, whether it be alien or zombies. And for me, I think that when it says like, and it kind of screws you up too, because at the end of that book, Mark is talking about how he might bring Winter and Cedar back into the series in one way or another. So that kind of blows your mind a little bit. But I think as far as if you're going with the um
All of it.
timeline,
All of it. Let's go with all of it.
I feel like it's difficult to say like all of it because because there's fucking Yetis in one that are coming out of a warp, like a time warp, and then you have there's no more. I mean, there's still, and then you got the distance series where at the end of the book they may have defeated the Strivers, but there's still Striver human hybrids where humans are transferring back into Strivers because they took Striver DNA. So that's a big problem. Devil's Death, you got Yetis coming out, zombie fallout. Like it's to the point where the zombies are getting so freaking advanced. Like we're at the point right now where it's like I wouldn't be surprised when one of them points a gun and shoots. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't blow my mind at that point. They've already thrown like spear type objects. They've already had a gun in their hand, but had it like the wrong way or whatever. But like they're at a point where they're advancing so freaking quick. And then you have like in Fallout where what the fuck happened at the end of that? You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
The end of like in Fallout, you're like they finally took care of all the demons. Tim is living with Mike and the kids. Yeah, with the kids, and then out of nowhere, it's like Mike is telling everybody to run, and if Tim runs from something, I want to know what the fuck it is. So we don't. I feel like every series have left on a cliffhanger, and I just feel like Trip needs to come down with a big ass staff and be like, combine, and just combine all of them together, and we finally get like some type of answers to something. Because I feel like the ZF Mike is like, oh god, he's over it. I feel like I want to look at a map to see where they could possibly be at, because I am geologically ignorant and like where they'll end up being. Because in my mind they'll end up in like Florida or something, and then they have to walk up from there. I don't know, but I know I'm ignorant with it, but for me, it's like Mike is so determined. It's to a point where he's so determined to get back to like Colorado. It's like it seems damn near like an impossible goal, but he's literally dragging everybody to that area. You know what I mean? And then wait a minute, and then also in this one, we don't know what's happening with Mac and Wilkes. That's a whole nother timeline within a timeline. That's like timeline. Like who the fuck came out the woods? And that's it. Why is everybody coming out of the woods and time portals at the end of these books? Like figure out
that's all there is at this point. It's just woods because everything's so overgrown.
It's the apocalypse. There's just woods everywhere.
It's woods and a lot of walking.
100%. Which I mean, granted, at that point, I'm ready to be out of the apocalypse anyway. But I think at this point it's just there's so many different ways, and I feel like with ZF I am just flabbergasted. There's 20. I'm glad I came in the series when I did, because I'm such an impatient person. I don't think that I could have waited the time span that it took. I mean, granted I did wait, but like it wasn't me. I would have hated if I would have started at like ZF4 until now. That was fun.
Yeah, it's a lot. Jason, you got your tinfoil hat on. What do you think tonight?
I mean, with Zombie Fallout, I think it's, I think the Wilkes and in the future, them meeting with Michael, with Azil and that, I want to see where that one goes. I mean, it's, it's just so surprising on what. I didn't expect that when we started the Lost Journals as to, that they would end up meeting him. Because, I mean, it's what was it, 100 years in the future? Something like that?
Like in Fallout's 100 years in the future when it starts. But I think the timeline between the ZF Mike and the ZF Wilkes and everybody else is 56, 60 maybe?
Yeah,
it's like a little bit more than
like
30 that. Because McGowan is just an adult, so it's about 30 years.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because he meets McGowan when he's like 7 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because
And
Mike's
then,
already in Maine. Mike's already in Maine, guarding everybody when Wilkes and Mac and Elam
right,
find him.
Elam.
Eli show up.
Elam,
Now,
Elam
one
Pine.
of the things that I wonder, one of the things I wondered with the zombies is the way they're mutating. It almost makes me wonder if they mutate into I can't remember what the name of them are from Shrouded World, the tall creatures.
In Shrouded World.
Yeah.
Oh God, we'll figure that out next week.
Yeah.
The
I can't remember the name
Whistlers,
of them.
the Overseers.
Whistlers.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So if they mutate into something like that, because you talk about that they at some point they shoot a gun and stuff like that. Well, the Whistlers, don't they have the things in their wrists or whatever that shoot the shoot the darts or whatever out?
Yeah.
The staples out. So yeah, it's wonder it almost, because you see some of them, they get so big, they grow tall, things like that. Do they turn into something like that? Some revision of them in an alternate universe is them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
it's definitely a possibility because they're on a different plane, and we'll talk more about Shrouded World
Right.
because that's what we're getting into next week. But it's definitely something. I think Shrouded World is kind of a different alternate reality, but a different universe, like literally a different universe than what we have.
Because if I'm not mistaken, I think that Mike is taken from when he first meets Trip. So him and Trip just met, and that's when they get pulled into the Shrouded world instead of they take their journey to go find Trip's wife.
Yeah,
because he references Shrouded World scenarios in, like, was it book 17 or 18, something like that.
Yeah. Anytime he has like a flash of like flashes between worlds, he's like those impossible tall creatures and stuff. Robbie has a question in the chat. He said, what he doesn't get is, did Tracy just pass away when they got there? I know from I think it was Like and Fallout, when in that timeline Mike goes and visits the kids, but he was trapped in his brother's basement. He was like kind of just stuck. It's Ron. He was stuck in his brother's basement, but it did seem like Tracy died of old age. She didn't die.
That was kind of the way I put it.
Yeah.
That was kind of what I thought too. So
yeah, and I think in Robbie too, when he said I buried everyone I loved, I think it was same Like in Fallout timeline. He just outlived everybody.
Yeah, because he's a vampire, so he doesn't age. It's like Cocoon, he's Wilfred Brimley. He won't get any older, and he won't ever die. So, Yoko's saying in the chat, Mike was sucked out of ZF into Shrouded World. Yes, briefly, but it's like a whole time skip where Doc Brown sent Einstein a minute into the future, but it's instantaneous for him. It's instantaneous for everybody else. But for Mike and Trip, it was however long it was. And again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're going to get into that next week. But if you haven't read Shrouded, you're listening or watching this right now, do it. Come along with us for that journey, because that is a wild ass ride where Shrouded World goes. And it's something you need to listen to it or read it. And you need somebody to talk to about it, because so much weird shit happens in that book that you're like, whoa, what just happened? BT's fat? What's going on?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I would definitely agree with that, because I know for me it sucked because Mel, my wife, didn't get fully through it, and I'm listening to it and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is going on here. Like it was like I almost didn't finish it. Like I almost didn't finish it, but lo and behold, it does make sense as you continue on. So that's good. But I feel like it was like a knot of like just stuff happening for what reason? Jeez, but it was a lot.
Yeah. Robbie, to answer your...
It always...
Go ahead, Jason.
No, I was just going to say, okay, go.
All right. I was just going to answer Robbie's question. So it's in the future, Robbie. So when Mike is doing this timeline with Elam, Mac, and Wilkes, it's the future that they're talking about. So Tracy and everybody else, Tracy's past, but when you get to Lycan Fallout, everybody's past at that point. It's in the future of the zombie Fallout timeline, kind of skewed a little bit. It can get confusing, but when Mike says everybody that I know is, is past or in that house, it's the same timeline, but it's in the future, if that makes any sense to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
All right, go ahead, Jason. What were we going to say?
Oh, I was just going to make a comment that one of the things that I love that Mark does is you get he's putting out a fantasy book now, but you get comments about a fantasy book 12 books ago, 13 books ago, a different series. And it's like, how long has he been thinking about this fantasy book and the storyline that goes along with it, that he has this stuff in a book that he wasn't planning on actually ever writing?
I think a while he's had this stuff. I mean, when you write something, you don't just come up with it and then you start going. You can have crap in your head for years. And he has said that he's been working on this for a long time. This was his passion project. I don't know if you remember when he got his YouTube page back up, he started reading excerpts from his fantasy novel each week. That's what we're going to do with the Mondays with Mark, or Tuesdays with Tufo, or Wednesdays with Weed, however he was wording them, whenever he got, whatever day of the week he did it. So I think he's been working on that one as a passion project, but contractually he's obligated to do a new ZF, to do a new Lycan Fallout, and all the other stuff that Audible or whoever has paid him to do, and say, no, you're going to write this one first. So in between that and building droids, he's been writing this fantasy novel. So I think this fantasy novel is his this is his opus. This is what he's been working on for a long time, and this is the one he wants to get out to people. And could this be a one-off? Who knows? Could it be something that integrates into the other books? Who knows? With Trip being a wizard in that realm, and then Trip being an interdimensional stoner time traveler, they could meet and bring everything all in together. I want to see an Avengers level integration of all of the characters.
Yeah,
I want like 3 different Mikes. I want 3 different BTs. I want just everybody to all meet in one big thing where they're face to face and they do that spin around scene. They all got their arrows and their guns and their whatever the hell they're holding up to fight the zombies, the Whistlers, the Melders, the Grievers, to fight everybody. I want an end game scenario. That's what I'm looking for.
I feel like as soon as you said that, the first thing in my mind would be, imagine ZFBT looking at Shrouded World BT, and he's like, "What the fuck did you do to me?" Like he's so upset. He's like, "You ruined me. This is what you could have become." Just flexing like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I just totally see that. I think one of the things that I really liked at the end of 24 was, everybody knows, like, I mean, that's why we have the tin hats on, so the government can't spy on us. But like, it's always been speculated the crazy stuff that would have been at Area 51, especially back then, in the 60s and the 70s, whenever that trip was there. And it's just like, I wouldn't be surprised if they had a genome back then. You know what I mean? If they had something back then, I wouldn't be surprised. You know what I mean? And it's just, I'm also curious who this reporter character, how he's gonna play a role in it. Like, it would have been nice if he would have been like a character that you wouldn't have thought of now. You know what I mean? Like,
a Mad Jack type of character. I would say I was fully expecting it to be, because Mad Jack was the younger kid that was always doing, was the intelligent type of kid, but then the timeline wouldn't fit for him to be in Zombie Fallout. But was he caught in a timeline loop with Trip, where he was cryogenically frozen, or where Trip doesn't age. You know, it doesn't get any older, and Mad Jack gets sent back out into the world when the zombie fallout happens, when the ZF happens, gets back to his parents' house.
Or what if he's who's Mike's friend that died in ZF that had diabetes that came back during the he was like a minor character. They were all best friends. Dennis. What if it was like Dennis? Like that would have been like a mind drop, like a mic drop. Like if it would have been Dennis. Like this added, I feel like that would have been so interesting.
Yeah.
My question is the kid.
Good.
I was just gonna say my question is the trip of then at the end when he's the professor. To me, it didn't seem like he knew that he was a multi-dimensional being at that point. You know, it seemed like he hadn't gotten to that point because, you know, you figure Trip has always done all the drugs to cope with the multiple. What's up, Chris?
Welcome, Chris.
Hey,
Chris is joining us. And I didn't have to remind him about his tin hat, Jason.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, he wears his all the time, though.
That is true. That is true. So,
considering my wife, I have to. So
there you go. We're all wearing tin hats, Chris's wife.
But he didn't seem like he realized, you know, that what he was, because he was in all the other books he's always high because that's how he deals with all the feed from the multiple worlds. And in that one he's a very clear-minded, you know, professor who is stuck in his work. So I wonder if something is going to happen during part of his research that is going to make him into. I think that's something that is going to make him all of a sudden into the Trip we all know and love. Is he's with that God particle or something like that? He's going to become a, you know, he's all of a sudden he's going to get the in feed from all of the other Trips in the worlds. Type of thing.
So if you don't want to get too off topic, I obviously don't know what direction Mark is going to go with it because this is a fantasy book, but there is a spiritual reference to what the God particle is, and long story short, basically what it is, it's a piece of the divine that is connected to you, and through that divine you have basically an elevated level of consciousness, and it's kind of difficult to explain in like layman, and like it's like a lot to explain in it, but basically the God particle is like just an advanced version of yourself, and once you reach a level of consciousness you're able to tap into that, and then that is what is considered a extremely high level of consciousness. That's why like it's like they have the word God in it. So it's like the highest level of consciousness that somebody could achieve. So it would be interesting to see the fact if Trip in as a professor ends up doing something to either unleash or not use in a proper way the God particle, and that's what makes him like ascends him to that level of like being that overseer type place to where he is able to manipulate time very, very easily, because that's also one of the aspects of being that open to your consciousness, being able to like expand your mind more.
So Trip is basically a Scientologist before Scientology existed. Okay.
Pretty much. Yeah.
What's your thoughts, Chris?
To a high Satan, you know.
Who do you think started the Scientology religion? It was Trip from the beginning. That's why he had so much money.
That makes sense.
So,
he didn't want to pay his taxes, so he started a religion. So, all right, Chris, we've been talking ad nauseum. What do you think is going to happen?
So I was actually listening to you guys while I was rushing home to do the podcast. So I think this kind of lends credence to there are many Trips. So, like, I know
think there's many Trips?
I think this kind of proves it, because I mean, if he existed as just a regular scientist way back when, it's not like, unless all the Trips everywhere combined into him, then there would have to be multiple ones that just took off down different paths.
But
I agree, and I know Thomas and Nyoka in the chat are saying there's only one Trip, and I agree. I do agree with that, and I don't agree with it. And I've said this before on the show. I think there are many different trips, bodies of trips. Like each universe has a trip, but that trip, there's one trip to control them all. Like he's the Saruman of the Triptiverse, where he can put himself in other vessels to control that trip and be lucid at that time. Or Trip is the stoner trip where he doesn't know what's going on and he's just kind of going along with everything that's happening. But he's very lucky because the other Trip is there pulling the strings. He can astral project himself into many different bodies of Trip, other selves. But when he's lucid, he physically has to jump into that body, if that makes sense.
I think my take on it is that there is one Trip because again, if you take a second and go back to the God particle and the type of experiments that they would have been doing back then, it's always interesting when people talk about what happens when you unlock your mind to a certain extent and the things that you can achieve when you do that. Now, if you could transfer your body from reality to reality, think of the technology that we're going to end up witnessing when we get into Shrouded Worlds. It would be possible that he gets to a place where he's like, what the heck is going on? And they're like, your task is to make sure Michael Talbot doesn't die. You know what I mean? And he just understands all of the different timelines and everything that he's supposed to do. And he's able to just implant himself in those different scenarios and spaces.
Does the God particle split Trip's consciousness, split his body, split his everything, and that's what creates the multiverse of different Mikes, of different Trips, of different everything? Because technically it is a God particle, so Trip is, I don't want to say Trip's God, but he's kind of a God. Is Trip maker at this point? It was just before all of that, like what is going on? Is, who's Powena? Are they real gods? Or is it just in this realm where Trip has the God particle and he splits himself off to become all of these other Trips where they didn't exist before then? He split the timeline with the God particle.
So I have.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jason.
I was just going to say something. You made me just think of something though. So Trip is in the 50s and he's a scientist in that. Did we ever find out where he was at? Because one of the things, because
MIT.
Well, yeah. Was it MIT? Because it made me just think of what if, because Talbot's going to be born in the future. And does he know before Talbot's born how integral he's going to be to the, to the survival of the worlds? So do we see in the future in 23 or 24, something like that, where Trip is, at Talbot's birth? Was he always there?
Mike?
I think one of the most interesting things that Mike consistently fights with in every single book thus far, except for maybe Devil's Death, is his level of importance. It's very interesting that this entire series of books in every dimension and universe that he ends up being in, that he is the catalyst to fixing or righting a wrong in one way or another. Like he came back to life like 8 times in these series. You know what I mean? Like he's like the weight. I feel like the weight of the fact that like it's literally to the point where like God is going to bring you back to like resurrect your ass just so things can get set into motion in the proper way. Like in one aspect, I want to ask you, who do you think is more important, Trip or Mike?
That is a good question. I mean, it's because doesn't Maker in one of them say, you are in some, or maybe it's Trip that says it, that I've seen you in every universe, and in some you live and in some you die. But this world is key to whether or not all the worlds survive.
Which ends up being like really catastrophic. Like I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, you ever think of the randomness of something? Like if you did one one thing different, your entire life would have been on a completely different trajectory than what it is now.
Every freaking day.
Could you? So I think it's interesting to think about how Mike, it's like he had to be put, like certain things had to happen in his life, like Azil, Azil, no, Eliza. Eliza could have chosen to kill him that night that she saw him from his bedroom, but because she was just intrigued and super egotistical, she decided to let him live. Like, and ultimately, his wife, who he met by random again, like ends up being her demise. It ends up being like it's such a dramatic chain of events that like literally Trip has to be the one to like get into consciousness, be in his body, and run a certain way to get Mike out of a situation and then sacrifice himself. So Mike continues on. Like it's mind blowing to an extent to realize that like Trip, in one sense, maybe in the Shrouded World was told all of these things are going to happen in all of these different dimensions. Azil was told when she was going through her witch training. Tommy was told by who knows how that all of the importance of Michael Talbot. And they all were tasked with making sure that he either survives, continues on, or gets to a certain point. And it's like there has to be some level of sacrifice on everybody's part that's surrounding him.
Yeah, good point. The one thing I have to, and I want to ask Mark this when we have him on again, is the ZF books looks like it was starting to head in a vampire direction with Mike, with Azil, with Eliza, and then Azil and all of that. And then Eliza dies. And now it turns into different universes and different consciousnesses and different everything. Like, what was the decision to make it go in that direction? Why did he start going in that direction with it all? What was the reason for that? In kind of a spoiler for what's coming after we do Shrouded World, we're going to have Mike and John O'Brien both on to there'll be an interview with them. John goes hiking in the summertime. So when I contacted him, he said, you have to do it before June or before the summer because I go hiking for the entire summer. So he'll be in like a camper somewhere. So I think sometime in May, we're going to have Mark and John on to discuss Shrouded World, and then we'll replay it after the series is done. But we will have both authors of Shrouded World on the show at some point, which would be very freaking cool.
Nice.
Yeah, he already is out hiking because have him on my Facebook and he's out every day he's posting pictures.
Every day he's
on the mountains somewhere.
He's doing a nature trail, and Mark is building droids. Like how those two met to come together to write a book series is beyond me. Like one person loves to get out of the house and be in nature, and the other one can't stand going outside of the house and being in nature, but maybe because it's black fly season up in Maine right now, who knows? So yeah, Nayoka loves John's adventure picks. They're great. But it going into the Devil's Desk world where there's the vortex where the Yetis come from, kind of from like the Hollow Earth type of theory. If you're a Godzilla Kong fan, this is where the Yetis are coming from. Could that be the catalyst as well into the different universes where, I don't know if anybody has seen the new, Kong versus Godzilla or Godzilla X Kong, where there's a whole other world in the center of the earth that is held together by different portals all over the place. Is that similar to what the other portals are to where the Yetis are coming from up in Alaska after it is unearthed from the mining and from the earthquakes? Is this something we're going to see something happening where Mike and them travel into the Yetis universe? What are we going to see in there? Because Devil's Desk is obviously going to continue, and I'm hoping he does, and I'm excited about that. I hope Devil's Desk goes as far, if not farther, than Indian Hill in Shrouded World did, where it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 novels, because I think he's really onto something there. What do we want to see with that one? Nayoka down in the chat is saying she wants to see a Yeti world. Definitely.
I could definitely see that.
Oh yeah,
So
definitely.
I saw a random video, and he posed a statement that kind of blew my mind when it came to what's going on in the middle of the world, and I'm gonna pose it here because it kind of blew my mind.
Mark did?
No, it was just like a random
Oh.
person. Like he just
Okay.
he posed a question. Now I'm like, I wish I didn't have this information because now it's on my mind, and now I'm mad about it. He said, you know how all the books, all the texts have always said that the core of the earth is hot, right? Like it's burning hot. Then why is the ocean cold? I said, fuck you. I did not want to know this information. And now I have a question that is like boggling my mind. Like, literally a question like that is like the reason I started drinking almond milk. It's like, why are you drinking what makes cows grow? And I'm like, I don't know. That doesn't make sense. That can't be for a human. So I started drinking almond milk. I'm like, that just, okay, simple switch. But there's like literally no answer to that. It's like, it doesn't make sense why they would say that. So I think when it comes to another world being deep underground, and granted, I literally just saw a news broadcast of where they just found like 100 new sea life in the ocean around New Zealand. And I'm like, I'm not ready for this. Like, we've been through so much this year already in the past like 4 years. Can we just slow it down with everything that we're finding out? But I think I wouldn't be surprised if somebody does something stupid like drill super deep under the ocean. They're like, "Ooh, this is a new place. Let's get underneath there." And a Yeti pops up. I wouldn't be surprised. Or we awaken the Loch Ness monster from her sleep.
There's shit in the ocean that we haven't even discovered yet that is so far down there, because you can't. The ocean is so deep, but the Earth is bigger. So maybe the center of it, this part of the center is, you can get in the picture, that is the core of the ocean. I wasn't making a heart thing. Oh my God, all hearts just came up on the screen.
So funny.
So it's round, but then the ocean's like this big. I have the power. I don't know what it is. That's what the whole thing of the Meg is. The whole point of the Meg with the movie with Jason Statham. Nayoka said, dude, we need to leave the bottom of the ocean alone. 100%.
100%.
There's alien life form down there that we do not know exists yet. You know?
Of course. Have you ever seen an anglerfish? That is alien technology if I've ever seen it.
That's
okay,
like
come on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Fish that glow in the dark on their own all the time. Yeah, that's
for what? Like, oh, we have a reason for it. It's because of their diet. It's because of aliens. Try to fool me.
It could be aliens. You never know. So when he's talked about on a past interview when he's been on, Cedar and Winter making an appearance, do you think it's going to be in the fantasy novel?
That would be amazing. I'm sorry. The Distant series, I loved it. It was one of my absolute favorite ones.
As far as timelines go, like, I know it's different universes, but don't Distance and Like and Fallout take place in similar time periods?
Yeah, the Distance is the future of Indian Hill.
So could we have a Like and Fallout / Distance crossover?
I don't see how.
If the timelines match, or if Trip pulls his wizardy magic. I mean, we have zombies and vampires, so we can probably have anything. And Mark, seems like a pretty smart guy and creative. And if he takes enough edibles, I think he can figure out how to make those two worlds combine.
Yeah.
In a mind-trippy, total type of thing.
Yeah.
Chris, your cat's behind you going, why are you wearing your Saturday night hat?
Yeah.
I love
the litter box is going to shit on Chris's head. And...
Literally. I think I would love for Winter and Cedar to come back in one way or another, but I think he did say he was done with Indian Hill, right?
Yes. Yeah. things we're never
Yeah.
going to see. So if anybody asks for it, that Mark has unequivocally said no. Indian Hill, Book 8, a BT standalone story of what happened when he left Mike in ZF before he started Talbotin in between the ZF and Like and Fallout series. A standalone Trip book that goes back to Trip's past and describes all of Trip. Those are the three things he has, or four, whatever I just counted, that he said that just it's not going to happen.
And he's hinted against no more collabs.
Yes, he has said that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it makes it a little difficult because I think the only way he could continue on with Indian Hill would have to be him working up to the point of Mike figuring out he has to get Winter and Cedar.
Mm-hmm.
And there's
two Mikes in at the end of Indian Hill. There's two Mikes,
which makes it even more difficult. So it's like you get there. I feel like there was a lot of things that were explained, but there was also a lot because you'd have to explain go into depth of like the pickets and all of that stuff. Like what is really going on with that? Like we got a lot of answers in that book, but I think it would just be a complete mindfuck to try to go back and like iron out all the details of what Mike and that version of Indian Hill people did to get to the distance chaos that was there.
Yeah, it's a total reset of the world. Nayoka, we don't want you to leave, but we're going to talk about Distance for a little bit. But you haven't read it. You need to read Distance.
It's amazing.
It's so friggin'
It's
good.
a great book.
You don't know where
it's
it's going, and all of a sudden you're like, "Holy crap! This is an Indian Hill futuristic book."
Yeah, I haven't done Distance myself, so.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I didn't think that I was going to like it. I honestly didn't think I was going to like it when I first started reading it because I'm like, what the hell is going on? But I mean,
yeah, it's a chick. You think it's a chick book.
100%. But I feel like the second you hear the end of the first book, you just fall in love because I think the first time I read that book, Trip was already dead for quite some time in the ZF series. So Trip comes back in this series. And I'm sorry, the second you hear Talbot, you're like, where does this fall into place? And you got to keep going. So you got to keep going. It's a very, very, very well put together. If you like Indian Hill, because Indian Hill is probably my second favorite series. I loved Indian Hill. So because I liked Indian Hill so much, Distance fell into it. I didn't expect it to fall into it, and it did, and it was seamless. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, when they get to that bunker part, and she's reading the stuff on the doors, and you're like, "Oh, I know that name." No way, that's what this is. So, I'm excited. Do we have a date yet of the fantasy novel?
Some people have posted that they already pre-ordered it, but I can't remember.
Oh, I did.
June?
Yeah. I've already pre-ordered the fantasy. I've pre-ordered the fantasy book and ZF 23 and 24 already.
Wow,
nice.
I gotta wait for my Audible credits for those. So
yeah,
I had a build up, so I did them all.
Yeah, I got my Audible credit, and I was looking through there, and I'm like, I wonder when the fantasy's gonna come out. So I looked, and I saw that, and I was like, oh, pre-order done, boom.
Yeah, we've been stacking up our credits because we don't know what to read now. Now that the books have slowed down, but we bought so many credits because it's like I can finish a book in like 2 days with listening to it at work. So it's like I was mowing through those books.
Yeah. Thomas down in the chat says June 18th. June 18th. Thomas in the chat says that's when the fantasy novel comes out. So
isn't in ZF 23 is like August or September, and then 24 is like November or something.
So he's got 4 books coming out this year?
Yeah.
Wow. Where does he find the time?
Well, we keep making him a full-time author, so we just keep it up. But just keep obsessing.
Yeah, that's true. And what's the new dog's name? He's got to feed that beast.
Oh yeah, it's so cute. Oh my gosh, it's so freaking cute.
I saw the one the other day when he was sitting at his desk and all the dogs were sitting around him in his chair.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get Mark back on just so we can see Norman. And, because Chloe's always there in the background, snoring away, and Holly sometimes jumps in. But yeah, I think we definitely need to be. The world needs to be introduced to Norman on the podcast here. So
definitely.
Now, one of the questions I have for Shrouded World, I know we're going to it, but in my mind, I see Shrouded World as, I don't know if you've ever read Stephen King's Dark Tower, where the way the world is in the Dark Tower series.
I did not.
The world has come to an end. It's kind of an apocalypse kind of world. And to me, Shrouded World, in a lot of ways, that's the way I see it in my head when they talk about going through rail stations that are empty and, cities that are, burned and nothing left. So that's kind of the way I see that world.
I think a lot of people have a view of the apocalypse. Similar. I haven't watched the Fallout series on, is it Amazon that it's on? Yeah. I haven't watched that yet. I tried playing the video game and I couldn't get out of the goddamn bunker.
Neither could I.
I kind of I just kept getting eaten by cockroaches. I'm like, fuck this, I'm done. So, yeah, I said the same thing to Mark, and he's like, "You can't get out of that." Yeah, it drove me nuts. So,
I did like the show, though. I did watch the series.
Is it good?
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, it's one of those ones. It's like, okay, it was good enough to get a season 2. It wasn't something like I would jump up and down and go like massively out of my way to watch it. But when season 2 rolls around, I'll watch it. So
yeah, Thomas down in the chat is saying Shrouded World reminded him of the Langoliers. Let me see. I was never really a big Stephen, and still not a big Stephen King fan. I read the staples of his, but never got into the other ones. That they didn't have. The really popular ones about it. They're just so friggin' long, man. It's crazy. So, Naoka down in the chat is saying, has anyone read The Road? That's a kind of vibe I get for Shrouded World, but with more chaos. Who's The Road by Naoka?
I've not seen that one.
No, haven't read that one either. So, yeah, anybody? I know Amber's got a hard out at 7, and we kind of, wasn't going to be a long episode this week because speculation can either go, we can go deep conspiracy tinfoil hat series or discuss what we know because we haven't really gotten to everything yet. I'm excited for Shrouded World because I love Calendar and I can't wait. If you haven't read Shrouded World, but you've read the Lycan/Demon Fallout series, this is where we get introduced to Calendar.
Which is always interesting to me. That their interaction is interesting because I can't figure out whether it was obviously the first time Mike met him, but Calendar got real friendly real quick with him.
Yeah.
So it was weird. I'm like, I don't know. It's weird.
He's a friendly demon.
Yeah. Have you not heard the introduction? His introduction.
Yeah.
Calendar is he's my favorite part of the Bleed. Like that's probably one of my least favorite of Mark Dupo books. But like Calendar being in there, he played a good role. I haven't
read the Bleed yet. That's in my it's the end of the day for me. It's in my I bought it, but I haven't read it yet.
3 more hours of driving to go.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm glad when it ended. I couldn't stop. I was too invested to stop because I had to figure out the end. But I'm glad it ended when it did.
I liked its ending. Like I was.
It was decent.
It was a short series, but it had a conclusion for an ending. So which Mark
doesn't do on anything else.
No.
Yes, you can tell that was definitely the end.
Thomas in the chat is saying Cormac McCarthy wrote The Road. So something to think about in between Tufo books. So one thing I read by a Tufo, actually physically read it because it's not available on Audible, is I read Travis's book, All That Remains. And if you're a fan of zombie Fallout, or I relate it to The Last of Us, either the TV show that was on HBO Max or the video games, it kind of takes place in that type of realm where the infected aren't zombies. They're mutated from mushrooms that take over their bodies, similar to The Last of Us. So I kind of said it's similar to in the same universe, but a different story of that, where we're not with Ellie and Joel, we're with a different group of characters. And it was really friggin' good. And he's a twofer. It just ended.
Yeah.
No, no nothing. Just the book ends. And you're like, when's 2 coming out? Like, oh shit, this was written 10, 12, 13 years ago. And he's given up writing. He's now a teacher and a strongman competition guy. So I want to get more from it, but I don't think Travis is going to be writing anytime soon anymore. So he's just got those 3. He just has 3 books out. And I want more from it. I really hope he does more, because he's got a talent.
In the Last of Us, that actually exists in real life. Like, it mainly attacks ants and stuff.
Right.
It takes over their nervous system, but it is a real parasite.
Yeah, that's what All That Remains is. An ant. Somebody gets infected by the ant that is infected by. They eat the ant that is infected by the mushroom, and it takes over their body, and then it just spreads like wildfire. It's really good. It's not a very long book. It's definitely. I mean, I read it on vacation while sitting by the pool trying to tan my white ass legs, which no, it didn't. It definitely did not. I got the book done before my legs get tan, so that's how quick it was to read. So as we start to wrap up, anything else anybody want to talk about before we say goodnight?
I just can't.
Anybody down in the chat too?
I can't wait for Devil's Desk 3 to come out, because that ending of Devil's Desk, I was sitting there, I was like, really? This is where you're going to stop it?
Yep.
That's
a two-fold book. Mark is definitely taking the cliffhanger to new levels,
Yes.
Yeah.
So
that was the biggest one that he's done that caught me at the end. I was like, okay, you can't stop here. I feel unsatisfied at this point.
Like in Fallout 6 ended the same way. So I want to know.
Yeah, like a Fallout 6 sucks. Yeah. That ending for like a Fallout 6, and then the ending for this one, it's like, all right, Mark, with the cliffhangers, like, calm down. Like, what are we doing here? Like, I can't. It's like edging. It's like, stop, and we gotta wait 6, 7, 8 months to get something else. Like, I can't stand that.
Yeah, he's definitely secured his future with those. I don't think his fans are gonna let him not finish those. And I think if Audible ever, for some reason, cut his contract for whatever reason, there will be a mass riot.
100%. 100%. I think for me, I just fucking Mark's mind. I feel like it could go in so many directions, and we had so many freaking thought processes here that I bet none of us are even close of what this man cooked up. And I'm excited for it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, he's probably watching this or listening to this right now, laughing, being like, "They have no idea,
no idea,
not freaking clueless."
Jeff's gonna get the text later.
Yeah, what the fuck were you guys talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
So, to piggyback off of kind of what Jason was saying earlier, the reason that Mike is so important is he's God's last champion.
Yeah,
that's why the angels didn't like him.
Yep.
Yeah, I believe that gets mentioned in Fallout.
Yeah, it goes deep. Fallout goes deep with Archangel, Gabriel, and Michael, and all of that. So now you've been down in the chat saying she wants more demon Fallout. Wants to know what happens in the underworld, or what's happening in the underworld. And the underworld is like Vegas, Nayoka. What happens in the underworld stays in the underworld.
Yep.
Unless they come up, Linux. I want to find out what happened with Linux with the little suit. She builds herself a little Briatine small person body, a little person body.
Yeah. Calendar built her a body, but she died. She got.
Oh, did she die?
Yeah, when Mike was fighting.
Right.
Yeah, Linux. And then I think another thing that I love about these damn books is like when you read them all, the Easter eggs that just pop up. Because I think one time Tommy and GF was like, I wish there was a Briatine. And we're like, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, that's from a whole nother universe. Like, which again is just throwing into perspective. Like, is Tommy jumping too?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another. I feel like that's a pill that I don't know if
Well,
we're ready to swallow yet.
Of course, Tommy's jumping, but he's just jumping to convenience stores to pick up Pop-Tarts and coming back.
True.
Exactly.
True.
So, all right, guys, we are going to stick a pin in it for this week. Thank you to everybody in the chat who listened. Thank you to all of you for listening. Thank you to my hosts, Amber, Jason, Chris. Amber, are you guys still doing the Amazon thing?
No, not as heavily as we were before. Just like
Okay.
I gotta upgrade at work, so that's kind of taking a priority.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Woot
On the
woot to me.
promotion. So if you are just listening to this and you want to join us live, check us out every Wednesday night. We live stream record on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Chronicles of Michael Talbot Facebook page, YouTube, and on Twitch. It's a lot of fun. You kind of bounce ideas off of each other, and I really enjoy doing this. It's kind of one of the high points of my week when I get to sit down and just talk about shit that everybody else looks at me like, what the F are you talking about? I have no idea. So it's other like-minded people.
I actually have to laugh. I wore my peephole shirt out the other day. Yeah. And I was walking through some little shop and some guy stopped me and he's like, okay, I gotta ask.
Nice. Yeah, I got my Zombie Fallout, my one-of-a-kind custom-made Zombie Fallout t-shirt. And I get some people walking around, like, they just kind of look at you and they kind of point, like, they give, like, the head nod, like, yeah, kind of thing. So it works out for the betterment of man that everybody finds these books. I hope everybody does. So, but guys, I want to thank you all very much. Next week, we are diving into Shrouded World. What is going to happen? Who are the Whistlers? Who are the Overseers? What happens when Mike and Trip go on a cosmic timeline skipping adventure? It's a wild friggin' ride. So grab yourself some mushrooms, LSD, or whatever it is that you need to do to get yourself in the right frame of mind and read the Shrouded World along with us. We're going to do this next Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Crew, I want to thank. Let me make another heart thing, or I did a thumbs up. There's a bunch of other things. The thing was weird. Who knows what goes on with it? But want to thank you guys all for joining me, and we will see you next week. Like us, review, 5-star ratings, all that fun crap you're supposed to say at the end of a podcast as well. You guys all have yourself a good week, and I'll talk to you next week.
See ya.
Have a good one. Bye.
You have been listening to the Chronicles of Michael Talbot, the podcast. Copyright 2024 by Chestnut Hill Studios. Hosted by Jeff Royds and Amber Smith. Co-hosted by Christopher Simpson and Jason Leelighter. Technical advisor, Mary Napoli. Social media manager, Melody Leone. Music by Burnt Ends. The Chronicles of Michael Talbot, the podcast, is copywritten by Chestnut Hill Studios, and no part of the show can be rebroadcast, remastered, remixed, rewinded without the express written consent of Chestnut Hill Studios. If you like the show and want to be a part of the conversation, join us live every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. on the Chronicles of Michael Talbot's official Facebook page, YouTube, and Twitch. And make sure to check out all the other novels by Mark Tufo by visiting marktufo.com. You may now go about your regularly scheduled lives.